Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. We're continuing trying to do one of these a day during the pandemic. And a special thank you and a shout out to all of the folks that are on the front lines working to try and keep us safe and help us remedy this terrible disease. If you are a first line worker and essential personnel, healthcare, EMTs and the like, thank you for all you do, and please stay safe and stay healthy while we're going through this. Today's project is an Ambassadeur. It's a 5500 C3. This one's got a skip in it. It's not smooth, it just jumps. And we're going to take this apart. We'll see what the problem is. Kind of a feel of broken line, kind of tangled in the gears. But there's also another one that's right behind that, and that's the brakes. There's spool brakes on here, and sometimes they get trapped in the ring. And regardless, we'll take this apart, we'll see what the issue is, and we'll go from there. So I'm going to just take the side plate off first. There's 3 screws that take the side plate off. And actually, let's go do the handle, because there's going to be a shaft on here for the spool. So let's go ahead and get that out. So take the nut cap off. It's held on by a screw, and we have our handle nut. That's a 10mm nut. Let's go ahead and take that out. The reel appears to be very clean, and that's for sure. We'll take the E-clip off here. That holds the gear shaft onto the bridge. Usually it doesn't have much pressure behind it, and you can usually do this by hand pressure. If not, just put a little screwdriver or pick or something behind it just to push it. You got to be careful with this. You don't want it to shoot. There we go. Because it's hard to get one of these as a replacement. But that's the E-clip that we're talking about there. Get that off, otherwise you won't be able to do some of the internal work. Going to remove the handle. You'll notice a couple of things while we're doing that. I have a protective glove on my hand just to keep the lubricants and chemicals and the like off of there where possible. And I also use a parts tray, which is in the background there. That parts tray is nothing more than the bottom of a milk jug, but it does serve as a central repository for all of the pieces and parts that come off the reel. Here's what I wanted to get to. There's a little circular kind of clip here. You'll notice that it's got a little ridge on there, and it goes into a slot on the spool axle. If you don't take that off, you'll pull the whole axle off when you come off this way. Also notice that there's a little copper piece under the cap. Sometimes I get questions saying, I found this little piece of metal, I don't know where it goes. Well, it goes inside the cap there as part of the spool tensioning system. Okay, now we have the 3 of these off. Let's go ahead and remove the side plate then. Yeah, so I think we probably have the problem already. This brake here, I don't know if it's easy to see, this brake is broken. So typically what happens with that is somebody takes the side plate off, goes to reinstall the side plate, and these brakes move in and out. And if it moved out during the servicing, it gets trapped by the inner ring here, and then that causes a skip like we had. I'll bet you if I just take these off or push that one back in, that well, it's going to be hard to do because I just took the drag off. Well, let's just see if it spins easy. Oh yeah, it's spinning now without the issue. I'm going to bet that's what it is, but we're going to go ahead and take the whole reel off, show you how to service this, and how to take care of the reel if you have this type of a reel. This reel is really clean. I'm not sure if it's even been fished. There's no indication of any dirt or anything on the spool. On the spool itself, we want to make sure that we put a healthy dose of oil in the shaft there. We'll also have oil on the back, and yeah, look how clean this is. So I'm wondering if this reel has even been fished. There's no indication of anything. Now, you don't have to put grease onto this plastic idler gear. That does drive the line guide mechanism, so I'm going to take that cap off. I'm going to put a drop of oil inside of this where the pawl is. But overall, this reel doesn't Doesn't look like it's done much fishing if it's done fishing. You can take the pawl out here, take a look at it. If you were having trouble with the pawl, you would look to see that the forks on both sides of the pawl are even, that they're not bent. And I would just put that right back in. I'm going to put a drop of oil on that, that'll facilitate it. And then I'm going to put oil on the worm gear. From time to time I get questions about using oil versus grease on that mechanism. I prefer oil. You have to do it more frequently because it'll evaporate quicker than the grease will, but it also doesn't trap particles and the like. And I would prefer to do the oiling versus the cleaning. Alright, so that's working well. So that's how you service the back end of this reel. Again, you don't have to put any kind of oil or grease onto a plastic or Teflon idler gear. The reason for that is that's a petroleum product, and that product will self-lubricate. Alright, same thing here then. We'll just go ahead and reinstall the spool. Well, I probably shouldn't have because we have a broken brake there. I do have brakes kind of in anticipation for that. So let me get a replacement brake there while we're at it. These are fun little pieces. And if this takes me more than once, just bear with me. It's not an easy thing to do this brake all the time. And there's a fat side and a thin side to the brake. You want the thin side out. Okay, so that actually went easier than I thought it would. That's your new replacement brake. The other one is fine. And notice the rim. These need to be pulled in when you go to reinstall, because if you push them out, they're going to get trapped like they were in that prior example. Okay, I'm just going to put that back in then. And while I have this open, I'm just going to put a little bit of grease onto the spool shaft here. I use a Penn Precision Real Grease for that. And I'm going to sit that in the upright position, try to keep these dogs in while we work on the back end of this reel. Alright, so we're going to take the bottom end of this reel off. Again, it's going to be a general service in addition to just fixing that skip there. And again, this reel looks pretty much new or unused. It's made in Sweden. It's a nice example of the Penn the Ambassadeur series. So I'll pull those two screws for the side plate, put them into my parts tray. Now we should be able to remove the side plate. I'm going to remove everything with that. The gearing system came up on that. That's okay. We'll just push it back the other way. Yeah, I'm going to say this probably has the factory lube in it. And this little piece here brings me to a good point. I don't think this reel's ever been used. If you lose a piece, if you see something like this jump and you don't know where that part goes, fortunately I do, but if you don't know where that part goes, get the schematic for the reel. That'll show you how the reel comes together in a burst diagram, and that'll help you to reassemble. Alright, we have a couple of tension washers here that have some old grease on it inside the core. So we'll just put those in there. And this is brandy new, so let's just take it apart, show you how it comes from the factory then. So we have a click ratchet below, which is going to trip the free spool out. We have a ferrule for the gear sleeve. We have a washer underneath. It's a spacer, essentially, for that click ratchet. And then we have a series of drag washers here. And let's take this assembly off, just because a lot of folks work on this and are trying to tune it up and want to know how to tune it up. So this pulls up. held on two studs. And you can remove the yoke and the spool gear or pinion gear. And let's just show you the rest of this assembly. The rest of this assembly comes up and out. I'm just going to take it all off so that you know, if you happen to have your bridge, you know how all of this goes back together then. So, okay, so we have all the pieces and parts off. Let's go ahead. It's all clean. No cleaning was involved with this. So let's go ahead and reassemble. We have a clean plate here. I just like to get a little bit of grease on here where the sliding mechanism is going to work for the trip. And then let's go ahead and put that trip on then. So we have the carrier arm here. And then there's the arm that releases from the case. That fits over the little stud there. And then there's the trip lever, which comes down. That rides on top here. And then we can put the spool gear in. Now you want to make sure that you grease that spool gear or pinion gear. And then when you go to reinstall now, the open spot of that gear goes into the hole so that it can accept the rider from the spool over here. And then this mounts on top. Is the two studs on the externals. That's where this mounts. So go ahead and line those up. And it's a friction fit. It's going to be tight. You have to kind of work on it, and then you can press it down. There we go, and you hear that snap. And this is in the back is flush with the case. You're good. You won't get flush on either side there, but that's how you reset this. Now we have that little copper piece. That little copper piece actually belongs on the gear post here. Then we would take the gear sleeve, make sure we get some grease onto the post. The gear sleeve comes on next. We'll take our main gear and check the teeth, but of course this looks like it's pretty much never been used, so we don't have to worry too much about that. Just make sure you get grease in there. You don't have to get grease in every tooth, but get enough on there that when it spins, it'll work its way around. Okay, drag washers then. These drag washers have some oil on them, which is fine. They're a hard washer. You don't need to do anything with them. They have the grease on or oil, and we're going to leave them like that. There's two round ones that are circular with flat sides. There's one that has a kind of a hump in it. That's the top one. This is the bottom one. And there's an eared washer. That one goes in the middle. So we put a fabric washer in, or a drag washer, then the metal, and we put the fabric in, and then we take the eared washer, now the one with the circle, put that in, fabric washer, and then we put the top washer on, and then we put the ferrule over the top of that. So that essentially is the rebuild of this bridge plate for this reel. Okay, once you do that, then you can mount that ridge plate. Now we have plenty of grease in here. It's the factory grease. You don't have to do anything. You could put some grease into the anti-reverse clutch. Not needed on this one. Center those two holes, and before you go pressing on the case, make sure that this lever is in that slot, because if you try and put the case on with the lever askew, it's going to cause you a problem. All right then. I'm going to take those two side plate screws, put those on now. These reels have stood the test of time. They've been around a long, long time. There's several designs internally for the Ambassador series, but these, the Swedish-made ones anyway, have really stood up. There's some changes that have happened since they've moved the production to China. Some of the designs, like the BCX series, just haven't stood up as well. But overall, it's a nice round big casting reel. Probably set the tone for what a round big casting reel should be. All right, these are tension washers for the star adjuster. They can be nestled. They can go face to face, or they can go contra, and I just like to kind of leave them face to face. If you don't like the variability in the star adjuster, you can alternate these in different patterns till you find the one that works best for you. Alright, star adjuster goes on. Actually, yeah. Let's put this back on the reel at this point because I want to make sure that we can do two. Okay, I want to install this onto the reel before I finish because I want to make sure I can get the assembly on for the spool shaft. Make sure your brakes are pressed in so we don't have that problem that occurred before. Line up your side plate, make sure that it's flush. It's nice and flush, which means that those brakes are inside. You should have zero tension at this point in time. Hand tighten those side plate screws. Now we have that little snap on the spool adjuster. There's two sides to it. There's a raised side and a flat side. The raised side goes in like that and you'll hear it snap. Grab your cap, make sure that little copper piece is behind. Go ahead and tighten that spool tensioner down, or at least get it started. You can spin it, make sure it's spinning nicely, which it is. Now we can put our star adjuster on. And the handle comes. Actually, the little tension washer goes under the handle there. Now the handle. Now we can either put the C-clip or E-clip on before this nut or after this nut. It'll fit either way. Just go with it on, because that little E-clip fits inside the nut. Then what I like to do is I like to hold that nut and use little pliers to pull it in. Just like that. Now we can give it a ride. There you go. So this reel has been tuned up, it's been greased, it's been taken apart. We're going to make sure that our trip lever works. We're going to give it a free spool, which is working nicely. Make sure it trips back out, which it did. And all we have to do then is put the cap back on. Now usually if this flat side of the nut is perpendicular with this hole, your nut cap will fit. If you have any trouble with that, take the screw out, go look for the hole. But I think we got this one right. We do. All right. So that's it. There's your Ambassadeur 5500 C3. It had a problem with the brake, which was causing a skip. We replaced the brake and we tuned the reel up. We showed you how to take it apart completely, how to lubricate everything. If it was dirty, we would have showed you how to clean it and how to get this thing out and fishing. So this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have a reel that needs service and you're not up for servicing it yourself, then please contact me on the email on the business card that follows. I do repair reels by email, although that's not the primary purpose of this channel. The primary purpose of the channel is to pass along what I know to the folks that are watching. And one of the things I know is that we've got a bunch of heroes out there with the first responders. And again, just as I started, I want to finish by thanking you all for doing that. So this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.